All right, everyone. Thank you for joining. We're going to go ahead and get started, I think. Bryce, are you still there?
I am here. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sounds great.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, for joining today. My name is Bryce Payne. I'm the Vice President of the Sales Department here at TCN, and we are very excited about the latest features that we were able to complete in this last update, and TCN will continue a very aggressive effort to dramatically increase our feature offerings over the rest of this year. In this latest update, there were 28 feature enhancements. You can see the full list of the enhancements through your management login by going to the Help tab and clicking on the Release Notes section. If there are any questions regarding any of these enhancements, please don't hesitate to contact a customer service representative to clarify anything for you. As far as the agenda for the webinar today, our goal is to highlight and train on some of the most prominent features that we have released so far this year. After we finish demonstrating the features, we will try to answer as many questions as possible in the time remaining. In order to submit a question, please send an email to the email shown at the bottom of this slide to bryce.payne@tcnp3.com. The email should also be visible in the comment section of your webinar tool. I will be reviewing those during the training, and hopefully we will be able to answer them all. If we are not able to answer them all, I will forward the remaining questions over to the customer service and have them reach out to you. For future releases, we'll send out a pre-notice of the coming features and expected release date. Once the release has been completed, we will send out an invite to join a similar training like this one. One quick promotional plug I'd like to talk about. I recently returned from doing a TCN exhibit at the ICMI Contact Center trade show in Orlando a few weeks ago, and there were a number of our top competitors exhibiting there as well. After careful examination of the competition, I can honestly say that you can't find a better system than TCN with our true blended inbound and outbound features. In addition, we have also had the opportunity to put our system in direct competition with 3 of our top competitors at 3 different potential client locations. In the challenge, the clients allowed us to put a portion of their agents on the TCN system while they continued to dial on the competing system. And in each of the scenarios, the TCN system was able to outperform the competitors by a huge margin. All 3 are in the process of or have now moved over to TCN. These results will be made available very soon so you can specifically see how our system truly makes you more efficient. Now, without any further ado, we will get right into the part that you're all here for. The training will be done by Adam DeMar. He is a manager in the customer service department and has been with the company for over 4 years. And to be honest, he's kind of my go-to guy when it comes to the questions about the system. He is really knowledgeable and has a great way about him in his ability to clearly explain how things work. I'll turn the time over to him now. Remember, if you have any questions during the training, please email bryce.payne@tcnp3.com, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible in the time allotted. Adam, if you want to go ahead and get into the training.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Bryce. Appreciate that. So today we have several things that we want to be going over. One thing that I want to point out is we're not necessarily going to be showing how to set up each additional feature. Rather, we want to give you an overview so that you know what is available and have a general idea of how it works. If there is something that you feel like you would be interested in implementing and you want some assistance in getting that set up, please don't hesitate to give us a call back. You can contact us, as Bryce mentioned, or you can just contact directly through to customer support, and we'll be able to assist you with any questions that you might have as far as getting these things implemented for you. Okay, so there's a couple different options that we want to talk about today. The very first one that we want to review is related to our pause codes. This is a really exciting feature. It's one that we've been developing for a while, and so I'm really anxious to show it to you guys, and hopefully you'll be able to find where it can be of assistance for you. So I'm going to jump over here really quick to our hunt group and just show you how we set these things up within the hunt group itself. So as this opens, our pause codes, there are different pause codes that you can set up for each hunt group. I'm going to go ahead and click on this manage so that we can see how these are created. So as you can see, this is one group of pause codes that we've already created for this particular group. I could add additional ones here that we can assign to other hunt groups or switch back and forth for this group. If I click edit here, I see this is very similar to most other lists that we have on the system. We can add additional codes by clicking the plus signs or take them away. And we can also reorder these in how they appear on the agent list. Okay. We can just specify each one of these and then we hit save. Once we've done that, we can choose which group of codes we want to have available. Okay. Now, one additional thing on this is that we can set a default pause code for the agent. If we know typically that these agents, when they are using this pause, they're going to be on a break or something else, we can set that here and have that available for them. Now, while we're here on this hunt group section, one additional feature that I want to talk about is our new hold options. And I'm not going to go into too much detail right now, but since they're set up in the same place, I just want to show us where these are done. So if I go down to the bottom, we have two types of hold available, a simple hold and a multi-accept. We'll be talking about the difference between those two in a few minutes, but for now we're just going to make sure they're activated, and then we'll go ahead and save that as well. Okay, so from my agent's perspective, I'm going to jump back to my broadcast here as the manager. From my agent perspective, as I log in, things are going to seem pretty much the same as they always have. Once my session is established, I have access to the same options I've always had. I'm going to go ahead and click pause right now. So as you can see, as soon as I click the pause button, it does place me into a generic pause queue. This will last for 30 seconds, and if I haven't made a selection from this list within that time, it'll push me back to a waiting call status. So there was some concern that this could be kind of a workaround option that agents could come in here, just click pause without selecting anything, and then not be receiving feedback on their time. So you can see it pushed me back into waiting call. So this time I'm going to choose break and hit continue. And as you can see, my agent is now on pause, locked into pause until I click resume. If I have any agent triggers set up associated with pause, then those would also go into effect. In this case, I don't. But one thing you will notice is my agent can't specifically see which pause code they've chosen. That is kind of on purpose because we don't want them spending a lot of time and thinking, well, I'm on break now, so that gives me X number of minutes before I need to jump back. From the management side, however, if I go to my agent dashboard, and if I pull up my active agents, I can see number one, that this agent is on pause, which is indicated by our red status code. And as I hover over, I can see that this agent has been paused on break for X number of seconds. So any of those that might not be familiar with our agent dashboard feature, this particular screen will update every 10 seconds or as often as I hit this refresh button. So there will be a slight delay versus the time that's listed here and the time that my agent is actually on pause, but only within 10 seconds or so. Okay. Once my agent's ready to return back to work, I can come back over here and hit resume. I did schedule a sample broadcast earlier, so I should have a call popping up in just a moment. There we go. So my agent is now previewing this call, and I'm going to go ahead and place it. And as this call goes through and connects eventually, this agent will now be talking on to that person. The benefit here as well is that my agent can also click hold to indicate that they want to place this call into a simple hold queue. Simple hold means that this agent is still connected here, and as long as that line does not hang up, the agent will be on that call until it's finished. Okay. jump back over here to my agent side so that we can take a look at my agent status. You'll see that this agent is simply listed as on call and will remain there until he's finished. From the agent perspective, once I've finished taking notes or getting clarification on any points that I need to, all I have to do is click resume, and it reactivates that call. I'm able to talk to the person again and finish out whatever I might need. I also have an option here that I can place this call on our multi-accept line. And when I do that, it moves my agent into a waiting call status. You'll notice I have a button here that says on hold calls. Now from here as an agent, I have complete access to any of the other features. Manual dialing, any outbound or inbound calls that might be coming in can still be presented to me. I can also pause and use any pause codes that I might need. While I'm doing that, this call is on hold. The initial call is on hold. From my management perspective, you'll notice that I do have calls on hold here. Now traditionally this has always indicated callers that have called in and are in queue waiting for an agent. Now we'll see that this is combining those two stats. This particular one is a preview call and shows me that started at this time. Any additional calls that are on hold, either in an agent-specific queue or within their own hold queue waiting to speak to an agent from the very beginning, will appear here as well. As I close that, I'm going to jump back to my agent, cancel this manual dial, and switch back to my call on hold. Okay, I'm now back on the exact same call, and for my management screen I can still see my agent there as well. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end this call. And I'm going to move on to the next call for just a moment. That'll take just a minute to pop up. While we're looking here, one of the features that I want to discuss as well is our dynamic scripting enhancements. We've made some changes to the responses that agents can receive. We've had in here for a long time the ability to pull information from a contact list and present it to the agent as part of the call. The new feature that we've added in here as well is that if an agent is already working this and we have multiple pages set up, as that agent, I can come in here and select a response to my initial question. And actually, I should probably show you this part first. So this response is labeled as please provide an answer. No answer has been selected yet. And you'll see as I go to the second page that I have no specific answer. It's still just listing first response. Okay, so I'm going to jump back over here, and I'm actually going to select a response this time. And as I do that now, we can see where this is updated. We can verify the initial response and have that up as part of the description so that the agent can see exactly what was entered. From here, in this case, I've used a text box that will automatically select the response that was initially entered. I can update this response, change it to whatever I need to, and if I jump back, it does not impact this initial response. It's still going to just record it as a new response for the second answer. Okay, once I hit end call, that will lock that into my agent session, for the call session. It will make that available for management to review and also to receive back in reports. So agent scripting, I know that there are some people that don't use this particular feature, but this hopefully is something that makes this a much more powerful tool, not only for those clients that actively use it, but for also those clients that might be considering setting up either surveys or simply agent responses that are more than just a simple answer that only occurs in one spot. Okay. Now we've talked about our pause codes, we've talked about our hold time, we've talked about our agent responses. All of these things eventually come back to being related to agent reports. What kind of statistics can we pull up for these things? How can we reference this information back to the client? So the first thing I'm going to pull up here is an agent aggregate report. This is just a simple call log that I created with some sample data that shows the various agent states and information that they've ran throughout a certain time period. Okay, I have my total calls handled, the number of calls those agents transferred. We're able to see exactly how many calls were done. I should point out here, if I had pulled a call report, I could actually see which calls had been transferred and how they were handled by each agent. I can also see for those agents how many times they placed a call on hold and what their total hold duration was during that time period. One thing I added here, and I think this is a good distinction and important facts to consider with our reporting abilities, and this doesn't just apply to hold, but it also applies to any of our statistics. As I show the hold total time, I can also show the maximum time. So for instance, if this agent had a total hold duration of 50, but a maximum hold duration of 40, this might indicate that Agent 9 might need some help with what happened on that particular call that made their hold time last 4 times longer than the other call they handled. So that's just an example of how these can be used and how we can review this information and use it to identify problem areas and things that we want to follow up on. I also have my standard agent statistics, which these have always been available to us and will continue to be so. And then I've added very generically agent pause codes. How many times was each code enabled and used by these agents? And then the total number of time that they spent in pause for each of those codes. Again, this is a very useful feature because it allows us to see not only who might be taking more pause times than others and how much time they're viewing. It lets us identify, maybe this agent that went on pause 17 times versus this agent that went on pause 68 times. There's definitely a discrepancy there in the number of pause times versus the time that they've spent on hold altogether. It's just kind of a red flag item that we'd want to follow up on. Okay, related to our reporting enhancements, we have a feature that's listed on our bullet notes as Hunt Group ID reporting. Now, this is a really cool feature, but it's something that I want to make sure we're clear on. First of all, Hunt Group reporting is something we've always been able to identify in call reports and things of that nature. We've always been able to say this was the Hunt Group that was associated with a particular call and a specific agent during that call. What we're talking about here is actually an enhancement on the back end of how we handle that data. And we've kind of broken it out a little bit more and made it more dynamic so that we have more flexibility. Now what that means is that instead of simply having an agent aggregate, I can also start creating things like this Hunt Group aggregate report. And this takes the same basic information, but instead of looking across the board at each individual agent, it's going to break them into specific groups and say these agents were associated with this group, and these were the stats that they had for a given time period. I think this is a really powerful feature and definitely one that can be leveraged in scenarios where you have multiple groups kind of in a competition stance where they're needing to compare how one group is performing against the other. In this case, we have a breakdown showing how many agents are assigned to each specific group. And then we also have this additional information. How many calls did each group handle? Those same agent statistics as far as durations and talk time and things like that. One thing I skipped over here and neglected to put in was our hold time, which probably would have been nice to see again, just keeping in par with the agent report. But all of those same statistics that are available on the agent aggregate would be available here as well. And then again, the pause time codes broken down by number of pause sessions taken versus the time that they were spent in each. So again, this is very similar to the agent reporting that we've always had, but this now is breaking it actually up to a more general level where I can look at group statistics and compare one group of agents against the other rather than having to compare individual agents every single time. So just trying to add some flexibility to the options that we have available and how that information can be used for everybody. Okay, as we go through this, our next item of business is going to be our bulk phone book uploads. This is actually a really cool feature and one that I think is very useful for a lot of people. In call center environments, there's lots of times where we have specific numbers that we're going to be selecting over and over. In this case, I'm just going to put in a sample here. And I have a very generic phone book of a caller ID entry. Okay, so as I enter this number and dial it, that number will show up as the caller ID on the call that I'm placing right now. However, we can have more than one number set up for these phone books. To do that, I'm going to jump back to my management screen. I'm going to select our agents, and I'm going to go to my phone book manager. Now again, this is a feature that we've had for a long time, but what we're talking about here is an enhanced way to manage these numbers and to work with them. One of the key things we have here is an export button. So if I have a large list of numbers either for the specific client or an individual hunt group, I can pull that list and see exactly what it entails. Okay. When I export a list, it's going to have a very specific format. And the format that it has is the same format that I would need as I import a list into these phone book entries. Okay. So in this case, I have access level being based on a client. I'm sorry, let me make this a little smaller. That large size works fine for my other reports, but not so much for this one. Okay. So my access level can be set to client or to hunt group. And so a hunt group specific would appear here. A client level would appear here. These would be available to any agent logged in. These would have to be an agent logged into a specific hunt group. Okay. Back to my formatting for these uploads and exports. I would need to include, if this is hunt group specific, the hunt group ID, as well as the hunt group name that it should be associated with. Following that, I have the name of the phone book entry, primary phone book here, versus these different names that are listed on this side. Finally, I have the phone number itself, and then the type of information that this should be. And let me just jump back over here really quick. So the type that we have would be caller ID, an outbound number, a transfer number, or any. So I can set these up to be used in any of these positions and will be made available for those agents as they log in to view this. I'm going to import this list now, and this is very similar to how we would import a contact list into the TCN system. I'm going to choose my file. This particular file does include a header row, so I want to make sure I've selected that. And I'm going to choose Excel, separated. As I select that, one thing I should point out is that just like importing a contact list, this does need to be a CSV list. We want to make sure that we have that format in there, generic, no multiple sheets, and the CSV manages that all for us. Okay. I can also choose to delete existing selected phone books, which means that this number that I already have selected and established would be removed from this process. I can delete all existing phone books, which means not only would this one be deleted, but any hunt group specific numbers would also be deleted. Or I can just choose to update existing, and it would just update anything that it's found and add in the new numbers that it has not found before. So I'm going to go ahead and click continue. And you can see I now have a large list of phone book items for my agent to choose from. I also want to switch over here and show the difference. Here's my regular group, and here's my testing hunt group. So you'll see that this particular number will only appear for my regular group. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this for now. Now, in order for my agent to see these, my agent will need to log out. And then when I'm ready, can log back in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and place a manual call. And as soon as I do that, I have this call ID box. And you can see all of these new entries that were added in there. So now my agent can select from a large list of caller IDs. I guess one plug I should throw in here is all of these go back to our customer service line. So if you want to go ahead and take a reference on these ones, you can use those to contact us at any time. Okay. So this concludes the specific bulleted items that we had planned on talking about today, but there was one additional item that I wanted to throw in here before we move on. So not in this most recent update, but in our previous last couple updates, we've released some other exciting new features, and one that we keep getting asked about and that I felt warranted a few minutes of time today is our manually approved calling feature. Now basically this is a feature that allows us to increase the number of calls we're able to get through, but still maintain some level of control over our abandon rate, making sure that we have agents available before those calls are placed. So this works very similar to any other broadcast system that we have. At the template level, we're going to specify if it's a manual a manual approval template or if it's a standard template, much like we do with our preview system. This particular broadcast that I'm running here, which is waiting for my agent to be available, is set to approve any calls that come in. And so as these calls, before these calls are dialed, they'll be presented to an approver. Now the agent that has access to approve calls can either be one specific agent, an agent with one specific hunt group, or it can be any agent that happens to be available. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and click here to manually approve some of these calls. Calls that are approved for manual dialing will be presented one at a time, and I have the ability to approve, and you'll notice here on my account number those are updating, or reject each call that's presented to me. The idea here being that I can manage and maintain a constant view on the number of agents I have working and what their current available stat is. Obviously here I would typically have many more agents associated with my campaign as I approve and reject these calls. One thing I want to point out here, this throttle is set to 5, meaning it will only allow up to 5 calls to be processed at one time. Once I close that, I can go back later. I don't have any yet, I did that too quickly. But I can go back and start grabbing those as they come in. So the idea here, and I think this is probably worth noting, is that what we're trying to do is increase the efficiency in manually dialing specifically cell numbers. This seems to be the main place that we have a lot of concerns with for most agencies, and most people out there right now are concerned about making sure that their cell phone connections go through and that they're not playing any kind of hold music, they're not abandoning these calls, they're making sure that they get in. The idea here is that this manually approved process lets us dial those cell phone numbers much more efficiently than if we were doing a standard preview campaign or even manual calling. This will let us get through a much larger list much quicker. We've seen in our testing and in our implementation of this product that we can increase contact rates by as much as 4 times over traditional dialing methods for these specific cell phones, while still maintaining that security that we're not abandoning calls or losing out on anything else. Okay. Very good. And I should probably jump back in here. Just to show you, I actually let these go to my machine as I was testing with you. But these calls will continue to be presented to my agent. In progress is listed as 5. And again, I have 5 more calls that are available. So this agent is able to manage those and get through them all that way. I'm going to go ahead and log my agent out. And I'll go ahead and pause that broadcast as well. Very good. So this concludes the specific bulletin points that we had to go over. I'm going to go ahead and turn the time back over to Bryce now, and we'll see if we have any questions that we need to review at this time.
Thank you, Adam. I really appreciate that. It's really great to be able to see firsthand how to incorporate the use of these new features. At this time, we will turn to the questions. We do have some really good questions that have come up during the demonstration. The first question, Adam, says, do call recordings continue on calls while in the on-hold status?
Oh, this is a great question. So this does vary based on the agents that are available. If it's an agent that is placing the call on a single hold, there's not going to be a there's not going to be a recording of that hold time, simply because the agent's not active on that call. We have a similar scenario with the multi-line, but I think the important thing to keep in mind is that when the call is reactivated, it immediately goes back to the agent's status. So if the agent is recording calls, it's going to just pick that right back up where they left off. So the hold time itself is not necessarily going to be recorded, but as the agent becomes available again, that will.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Next question is, on the scripts, do we write the questions that the agents use?
Oh, I did probably jump over that way too quickly, and I apologize for that. Yes. And actually, let me back out of this really quick, and I'll jump back over to my Hunt Group setup, just so that we can see what those scriptings look like. So for this specific test, there we go. These are just the responses that I plugged in here. But yeah, you can get a lot more specific with a lot more variation in here. Most clients that are using these, either for multi-page surveys or simply for confirmation based on different types of calls, they'll have a large number of responses here. All of the same scripting and dynamic elements that we've always provided will be available here. So for instance, if I have more than 2 pages, let's say I have 5 pages selected, I can say if they answer maybe, then when my agent hits the next page arrow, rather than just going to page 2, let's jump it over to page 4. And we can have a specific script for them listed there for those maybe responses to try to maybe sway their attitude in one way or the other. All of that same scripting is available, and it's just based on what you want to set up. And this is all handled through our Hunt grouping sections.
Great, thank you, Adam. The next question is, can the reports that you were showing be created through the Automated Reporting Center?
Yes. Very simple answer on that one. They definitely can. Any report jobs that I set up, I just want to roll down here so we can see them. Oh, I apologize. Those reports that I pulled from a different account. I got scared there for a moment. In fact, let me just grab that other account really quick, just so that you can see exactly what I'm looking at here. Let's try that again. As we jump over here to our automated reporting, we can see where these automated report jobs are set up. And as I scroll down here, you can see the different types of reports that we have. These are specifically what I was looking at, ALD agent log, and then my Hunt Group log as well. And so yes, those can be set up for automated reports. We can send those at the end of day, at the end of the week, or at the end of the month, just depending on what your specific requirements are.
Great, thank you, Adam. Next question, it says column B, is that the number of assigned agents on the campaign or the number? I'm not...
Gotcha. So this is a good question. And I'm not sure which one they're referring to. I'm going to guess that this is from our Hunt Group report here. Yep, this is column B, so that's what we're talking about. This particular report that I pulled was from just a time period, 30 days. And so this is every agent that was logged in during that 30-day period. We wouldn't necessarily break this down by specific broadcast, although you certainly could. It would definitely take a little bit of juggling as far as the hunt groups are concerned, but we could easily set that up for you so that you can see campaign-specific details. Every time a specific broadcast was ran or even a specific type of contact list, we could have just those agents appear there. So like I say, it would take a little bit of juggling, but nothing that's out of the ordinary, and we just recommend that you contact customer support so we can set that up for you.
Okay, Adam, the next question says, may I put together an insurance company list for my insurance agents who will manual dial insurance companies all day?
Absolutely, and this goes back to our use of the manually approved calling agents. We can easily set up lists that would go to a specific hunt group, only be available for that hunt group, and you could easily set that up so that only those calls will be presented to those agents, and they can work that, whether it takes them all day or a few hours or an entire week. We can set that up for them that way.
The next question, how are the cells separated from the landlines and what Adam is talking about?
Okay, so we're going to jump back over here, and I'm actually going to jump to my template manager real quick. So for those who are unfamiliar with our cell scrubbing feature, I want to talk about that just for a quick moment. The TCN system has the ability to identify numbers that have either been registered as cell phone numbers since they were established, or that have been ported from landline use into cell phone numbers. So we can identify those and make that determination before we place a call. So this is going to use the same basic system, except that normally in a cell scrub environment, when we identify those cell numbers, we're going to cancel them right away. And I grabbed my other template, but that's okay. The same features are available here. So we can use this on preview as well to send preview numbers to send cell numbers to be previewed, or we can set up manually approved dialing to only approve cell numbers. So in this case, any number that is a cell phone would be sent to that approval agent where they would click and approve or reject those calls. We can also set this to manually approve all numbers. So if we just have a large list of numbers that we just want to make sure they're all treated the same, rather than looking if it's a cell number or not, we could manually approve all of them. Or we can do the cell phone specific scrub. Any number that is a landline as it goes through this particular setup would just be dialed as a predictive number. Nothing outside of the ordinary. It would just automatically be dialed and fired to any available agent. These ones would still require the manual approval of an agent to click and approve or reject them.
Okay, Adam, the next question is the import process from the collection software the same in this new version, both for preview and normal dialer campaign?
I'm sorry, can you read that one more time? I think I missed part of the first part.
Is the import process from the collection software the same in this new version?
Yes.
Both for preview and normal dialer campaign?
Yes. So the import process itself, generating that list and getting it uploaded into the TCN system, and I'm going to jump to our contact manager just while I talk about this, is going to be the same. And so whether you're using an SFTP folder or an API command or an integration with one of our partners, the process that you use for importing that data is going to continue to be the same. This contact manager is where we internally store those contact lists once they're listed. We haven't made any changes to the way this data is processed. This is going to continue to come in the same way, be used in the same way. The difference is where this data gets used in the template setting. And so it doesn't matter how it's imported as long as it gets into the system correctly. And then from there, we make the determination of how those calls should be handled as the broadcast is running based on which template you've scheduled.
Great, thank you, Adam. I appreciate those answers, and that's all we'll be able to take care of at this time. This training has been recorded. If you would like a copy of it for review, please send a request to the SAIL email shown on the screen here below. Actually, on the next slide there, the sales at TCNP3 is the best place to send that request, and we'll get the recording out there for your review. Thank you again for taking the time today to join us. As I mentioned before, this is the first part in a series of feature releases to happen this year. I would like to ask at this time that if there is a particular feature that we do not have yet that is very important to you, please email me with your request, and we'll let you know if it is scheduled for the next updates this year or if it can be added into what's already scheduled. In a coming soon announcement, I'd like to mention that we are thrilled to introduce TCN's competitive analytics tool that is close to being ready to release. It is extremely advanced reporting engine that will drive better decisions making and allowing for the action to be taken in a matter of minutes. We are confident that the tool will help transform contact centers by making it easy to conduct data mining and predictive analytics. Adam, I really appreciate your help in going through these features, and we appreciate everyone that joined us today. Please let us know if you have any additional questions. We'll get to those as soon as possible. Thank you again, and we look forward to hearing from you. Have a great afternoon, everyone.